Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show right here on 97 on ESPN Radio. My pleasure to be with you. Good Monday. Hope you're well. Thanks for tuning to us. I'm Jeff. That's Tom. We're online. ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you can go to listen live via the streaming. That's free always. If you're in your car, just listening on the old school radio. I say, all right, all right. Note that if you miss portions of the program, that's okay. You can always get caught up at your leisure. We'll post it to Apple Podcasts. Want to email us, feel free. Fire away, jcs at 979espnradio.com. On Twitter, it's at J Cameron Show. Hello, YouTubers. Hope this finds you doing well. Busy weekend. It now becomes, obviously, Florida State-Miami week, and this is normally a time where we get pretty geared up, pretty fired up for the games. There hasn't been the same sort of charge to the Florida State-Miami games the last few years. Now, it doesn't just necessarily coincide with Miami wins, because we would get fired up in cases in which Florida State had lost the previous year going into the next season. So long as there was, something at stake beyond pride, and there's always going to be pride when it comes to these two teams, but also so long as that the combatants were, something resembling coherent. And Florida State has not the last few years. I don't know what this one will be, though. I know that it's likely going to be a Miami win, so I'll start with that. It's more than likely going to be a Miami win, but I'm not willing to just chalk this up to a lopsided beatdown. And that's not pride effing with me. That's more along the lines that Miami hasn't really seen anybody that would hold up defensively. UAB's a well-coached team. They didn't have the horses. I think Florida State has some players on the defensive side of the ball, if playing their very best brand of football, an attacking brand of football, will give them a chance to make some plays, will give them a shot at being around into the second half. That's all I'm saying. I think Vegas feels that way too. You look at the number, it's only 9.5. It was, I think, on the minds of many as the Miami game wound down against Louisville. What are they going to beat Florida State by? And I was curious to see what Vegas would do with it. But you look at this rivalry over the years, even in years in which Florida State had the vastly superior team, most of the time Miami hung in there and made it interesting just because rivalries do that. These kids grow up in the state, many of them, and they can play, and they do have pride, and they do care, and they'll hang around, and they'll make it a little bit tougher sledding. That's the hope for this game. You've got to try to force this into the second half and put some game pressure on Miami. I don't know that Florida State can consistently give themselves a chance offensively up front. I don't know that we're going to get that because Florida State has not just struggled against good football teams at the line of scrimmage with our offensive line, but bad teams too, pretty consistently. And so I'm certainly not going to project a strong performance from the offensive line against Miami's defensive line. I think it's doubtful. So I don't know, the quick game will have to be at play here. You could maybe use Miami's speed against them in some ways. But also when players have opportunities to make plays, when James does it right, make a play, guys. The receivers are going to have to be so much better than they were last week or 2 weeks ago. That receiving core, they don't bear the brunt of my disdain going into this week, but they really, upon reflection, did very little to write home about. They cost this team dearly.
Yeah, you could be talking about Florida State at 1-0 and having to clean a ton of things up, but instead we always, it feels like, have to go back to the very basic square one and get mad at the obvious things. So here we are.
So frustrating. Plenty to dive into with that game as the week unfolds. As of now, it feels like a fourth consecutive loss, but that wasn't the news of the weekend. The news of the weekend was that the head football coach at Florida State is not really going to be a part. We don't think. We'll see. I'll talk to Ira Schoffel in the 4 o'clock hour and get the latest, but we can, at first, and by the way, when I do that, as Tom correctly points out, all guests will appear via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway and 833 West Gain Street. Online at phoneherotlh.com. we'll hear from Coach Norvell here in a second. Some thoughts that he has. Obviously, this would be his first Florida State-Miami game. I feel very bad for him. Nobody wishes another to get COVID or have to deal with this. It seems like it's piling on. It feels like it's just piling on. Again, presuming he's going to be okay, judging by his comments today, he seems to be in good health and not really suffering from some of the symptoms that you hear about from some others. So maybe that will be his experience with COVID. I don't know, but I wish he and his family well. Let's get that out of the way. It's important to note that. But I feel bad for him. I do. I don't know him very well personally. I haven't had this sort of give and take over years at a time where you do a weekly interview or anything like that. You get to know somebody a little bit. So I can't say that. I don't know him. I've spoken to him several times. We all have, really. He's been good about access, and I've interviewed him a few times. But just nobody deserves this. I mean, you take over a program that's pretty much in shambles. It's going to be a tough turnaround as is, and then COVID hits the world, and obviously there are more important things than sports. The obligatory note that I understand that. But when you're trying to turn a program around and install a new offense and a new defense, it's paramount that you get as much time with the kids as possible, not only to affect the way that they think, but also to inform and to teach and to evaluate and really shine a light on who you can go to war with and who you can't in a football sense. And unfortunately, that was cut drastically short. You didn't get all those reps. You didn't get to play a spring game under the lights. You didn't get the opportunity to kind of identify problems or areas that are going to have to be cleaned up to a greater extent, right? You didn't get to rep certain things that are revealed because of extra scrimmages that you get because of a spring. You didn't get all that. And that obviously shows. Then you get into fall camp, and maybe you're inclined to go a different route at quarterback. Maybe, just maybe, you're at the very least going to rep some other guys and give them an opportunity, including a kid who's really athletic that would allow you to move the pocket and Chubba Purdy, right? Get him out on the edges and let him make some decisions there and buy some extra time for yourself, and he breaks his collarbone. Now you not just that, you have your normal attrition that's going to come with those that just won't buy in. That's going to happen when change occurs. That's nothing new. But you throw in all this stuff together, and then now you get COVID. It's maddening. Now, he made some headways over the weekend online. A lot of you sent it to me. I roll my eyes at this because of all people to comment on another coach's situation, Urban Meyer need not tell the world that he thinks that Coach Norvell's in quicksand and he's got to find a way out soon. He's just struggling there at Florida State. Get the hell out of here. He even went and tried to go high and mighty and say, well, the Florida State I knew was led by Bobby Bowden. They've never been the same since the man that is Bobby Bowden left. Okay, Urban. No shames.
Yeah, we got better and chased you out of your job, so...
And beat your ass senseless, but don't go moralistic on me. You can't. You're Urban Meyer. You're scum. So anyhow, that happened over the weekend. Don't worry yourself with things like that. We get enough of this. We get enough of this with the era of social media where people are entitled to their own facts and scream at each other all the time. And don't get caught up in that kind of aggravation.
Well, I'm here to tell you good news, buddy, because Mike Norvell will be coaching Florida State and calling the plays this weekend. Because remember, Kenny Dillingham said they're of one mind. So therefore, if they're of one mind, yes, Mike Norvell is calling the plays just like he would on Saturday. So he's going to be there. And this was already going to be an Adam Fuller week. Because if you're trying to devise a way for Florida State to be in this game late, there's two ways you can do it. Either the offense outperforms what it usually does and scores enough that we're in the game, unlikely, or the defense schemes it up to confuse Miami enough that it's low scoring into the second half, and that's how you're in the game. And whether or not Mike Norvell had COVID or not, this was going to be about, can Fuller put something together to confuse that Miami offense enough to where maybe we're in the high teens or the low 20s, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, and it just comes down to who can score late and execute.
The weekend that was the week to be, it's incredibly busy. But yesterday really saw the NFL suffer a rash of devastating injuries to high-profile players, some incredible endings to games, including last night's football game, which was riveting to watch. You get the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs returning tonight, Stanley Cup Finals returning tonight, where our Bolts need to bounce back. Predictably a loss over the weekend, given exhaustion and all of that. Stamkos skated this morning. Might you have any insight as to what that might mean, Tom?
I'm of the mindset today that he might even take the pregame skate.
Okay.
I'm of the mindset today that you might see him before the game starts and the speculation might ramp up.
In a uniform.
All
right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Good to hear. Monday Night Football, Major League Baseball down the home stretch. We've got playoffs starting next week, and, of course, the NBA Eastern and Western Conference Finals. This could not be a busier time. And then welcome back to college football in the Southeastern Conference. So schedules are important to fill out these days as a sports fan. You got to figure out where you're going, what you're watching, where you can be, and when you can do it.
So did you have the color-coded calendar for the boys and the family before, like, when they were younger, starting to enroll in pre-K and kindergarten?
And all this stuff. You got to do this, got to do that, yeah.
Well, now you need one for sports.
It's crazy.
Got to have one.
And I did not make mention of our latest U.S. Open champion, our national champion, everybody, Bryson DeChambeau. I know it swells the bosom. The pride you feel that Bryson DeChambeau is the U.S. Open champion. All credit where credit's due. Basically boat raced the field and made a mockery of the arena. And what I will tell you about that is, and pretty funny, it should be noted, Steve Rabideau told folks this week, he's the superintendent of the golf course there at Wingfoot, that he would retire if anybody finished below par. He thought he had it set up. No chance that can happen.
He could make somebody in this fine city whole on a prop bet they might have placed to that end. But before he retires, maybe the next paycheck can make somebody whole on that.
Yeah. So, listen, it wasn't just about hitting it further than everybody else, although he consistently does and did again. He was really good on the greens especially, and his approach to the green. And he was a complete player in the modern sense of the word, in that the games aren't tested the way they used to be if you can hit it as far as he can. But that's not his fault. And that leads to an accelerated conversation that's already existed behind the scenes for some time, which is that we're going to dial back the golf ball a little bit here. Are we going to make it so that all you have to do anymore is hit the ball as far as you possibly can and be good on the greens? Because that's not really a true test of one's complete golf game if that's where we're headed. Now, that, again, in fairness to him, is not his fault. He exploits the opportunity.
Absolutely, and I have to say that on the back nine, when it became apparent that Bryson was not going to blow up and throw up a 10 like he did earlier this season, it might have been an 11, I forget, and Matthew Wolff wasn't going to challenge him. When it became apparent, my mind immediately shifted to, all right, Bryson, now, when you wear the red, white, and blue next fall at Whistling Straits, you better be damned useful to us, because there's no way you're missing that team now.
No, there is no way he's missing that team now. And, you know what else there's no way we're going to avoid Bryson DeChambeau is on your TV screen, because he is really good for the game of golf. Really good for the game of golf. Easily advertised, too. He's a good-looking kid who's unconventional and not afraid, and he's a heel, deservedly so, especially for people in the world of golf who know enough about him. If you just need a sample size of why most people in golf think he's the world's biggest ass not named Patrick Reed, berated a rules official, yelled at a cameraman and blocked him, fought ants, yelled at his caddy, treats people poorly behind the scenes, tells you that he's smarter than he really is, any number of things that he does that make him impossible to like, and I'm just scratching the surface, but he is also a U.S. Open champion.
It also gets fun if you just think that it's Happy Gilmore 2, Shooter's Revenge, and this is Shooter McGavin, the player. Because then it becomes fun, because it is a character that I think he's playing.
I think it's important to point out, and we'll move on, I think it's important to point out that it is good for golf. Like, I can all at once simultaneously loathe who he is and how difficult he is to like, and he is very difficult. And also think it's good for golf because it brings people to the TV. I mean, he does. He is a polarizing figure, and he is unique to the game of golf. And I think that that's good for the sport. It continues to grow the sport. So when we've had this discussion before. When I watch him, I'm glad he exists. I'm glad he's on the tour. The world needs guys to root against, and he is your typical heel. He really is.
But if ratings are down, don't let the golf media conflate that with the reality that the U.S. Open typically has little to no competition when it's played. This is an NFL football Sunday. I'll bet the ratings were in the tank, U.S. Open for U.S. Open.
Well, he hit 23 of 56 fairways. That's the fewest of all time to win it. But increasingly, those inside the game have worried that the U.S. Open has ceased to be the U.S. Open for some time now, that you don't have to hit fairways, and that it doesn't test every facet, I should say, of your game. It's not fairways. It's about hitting greens. And if you can hit the green, if there are very few penalties for missing the fairway, that is to say, you're not landing in water, you're not OB, and there were very little trouble spots on this course. You could go wayward all over the map, and it really didn't matter.
Yeah, the rough wasn't deep enough, period.
But even if it were, I don't think it matters when you're hitting a 60-degree out of there, and he's got deft touch from there, and he does find a way to land out of that thick rough all the time. I don't think growing the rough anymore was going to make the difference. He still would have been identified as a champion because he was going to hit it, in some cases, 378, and then have a wedge in, and he was going to give himself a putt. And he's and the underrated aspect of this is that he's a really good putter. He's really good on the greens. So it's not just that he bombs it, but he is good on the greens, especially when he's confident. And he was confident on the greens. I mean, it never looked like he fretted over a single putt. I mean, his lag putting was incredible, and when he had to make putts, you never really got a sense that he was going to miss.
No, and this is where I understand it, and the golf broadcasters always just are flabbergasted when they talk about this. But the idea of if you flood your brain with information, you don't have time to be nervous. So if you're doing calculations, one after the next, incessantly, right? If that's your routine, is like, okay, you got to talk to your caddy, and you've got 20 things that you're listing, and you got the point, the apex, the drop off, and the slope rate, and then you got the book, and you do all the things you want to do. Well, now you just need to go up and hit the ball. There's not enough time to think about the magnitude of what you're doing because you're thinking about all the elements that contribute to the actual act of what you're doing.
What I think is funny is that there are people who think that much of that, you mentioned the act, that's the act. The stuff he's saying when he knows the camera's on him, so it's a 10:30, it's a 10:30, whatever he's saying, nobody has any idea what that means. It's dumb. And there are a lot of people who think it really doesn't apply. It's not really the kind of the equation, if you will, the larger equation that he used to get to where he is. He knows it sounds ridiculous, and he just likes to do it. He likes to make it sound to be something it's not. And I wouldn't put that past him. I do.
Sure.
Think, yeah.
That's engineering in general. Just knowing a little bit of what I do now from the radio side of things, they create their own language so they can charge you more money. So he's got an engineer's,
he's got a thing, man.
He's wound kind of like an engineer.
Yeah, he's got a thing. It's the Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Norvell. This was from his opening comments earlier today, and obviously, tough situation to be in.
Obviously, a little bit different press conference for me, but you're definitely excited about this week, excited about the opportunity that's in front of us. I thought our guys did a nice job through the bye week. Our focus this past week was truly about continuing to improve, developing the fundamentals, overall understanding of our expectations, and putting ourselves in the best position for this week that's ahead of us. We understand the importance of this game, the opportunity. Excited about the showcase, with being hosted game day and opportunity to be in a primetime presentation, and it's going to be a great showcase for both universities and the opportunity that's in front of us, and the importance of this game for our team, our program, obviously our fan base. It's one of the greatest rivalries in college football, and you're definitely excited about the week of preparation ahead, and the opportunity that's in front of us come Saturday night.
Hey, Coach. I know y'all are still doing the meetings and all virtually, but I guess what are you able to do when the team's out at practice? Are you able to be there in any way virtually, or is it more people kind of reporting back to you afterwards?
No, that was one of the great things. Yesterday we had our normal Sunday practice, and I think Austin Phillips, our video crew, did an extraordinary job. I was able to have access to multiple cameras on both fields to be able to kind of go back and forth in real time for what was going on at practice, and through speakers I could communicate with coaches from things that I was able to see, and I thought all in all it actually went pretty smooth. We had our normal virtual meetings. For myself, adding into our team meeting virtually, was able to lead that meeting. Was in all of our other meetings that we had collectively, our group special teams, as well as being able to have the flexibility to move around through the individual meetings as well. So it's not ideal, but being able to make the most of it, I think that's one of the great things about technology, and really just as we were going through the whole quarantine, we talked about sometimes the greatest challenges bring along some of the best blessings, and the blessing of understanding and developing comfort in how it can operate virtually, and the things that we can get accomplished. I think definitely has prepared me for this moment in what we're having to go through.
Well, less than ideal is a nice way of putting it. It's not good, but you are in a very different place in the modern era when something like this happens compared to, say, even a few years ago. The ability to address your team from a distance and go over certain aspects of what you're going to be doing by segment group or on the whole certainly exists now in a way it never has before. And so, yes, on the one hand, he should look at it that way. The glass is half full. That, well, if this had happened just a few years ago, I would have been pretty well excommunicated for 10 days, and that's not true now. So I don't know. I'm certainly not going to say and jump to any conclusions about how this affects the team or doesn't, or what kind of rallying cry it might be or not. I think that's making more of it than we could possibly know. I do feel his frustration. I do feel for him. I think in looking at the game, we're right to just point out defensively time and again, that's where it has to start for Florida State. Miami, their wide receivers, 18 targets, 99 yards is not great. So if they're pedestrian by Miami standards at wide receiver, I mean, can you trust your corners to put them on lockdown and focus your attention elsewhere where they are very good? Whether that's tight end or running back, I think you can, and in particular the quarterback's legs. So this is where it has to start for Florida State. And then the other aspect, if you're looking for something to hang your head on, or hat on, you don't want to hang your head, but hang your hat on. Miami gave up 516 yards of offense to Louisville. So it's not like that's a juggernaut defense. Now, Louisville's better equipped in some ways than we are, and I think they're more dynamic at quarterback and Got a couple of explosive players. Terry could be explosive for us. He just has to show up. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see what Florida State's game plan is. The quick game, I would think, would go a long way here.
Logistics-wise, they're going to naturalize, I don't know what the term would be, but one grad assistant to fill the vacancy. So that's good. Over Willie's staff, we still do have a full complement of coaches on Saturday. Chris Thompson will move down from the box to the sideline. Mike Norvell's contact with the team ends when they leave the team hotel on Saturday. He'll be able to talk with them for pregame, the travel, whatever walkthroughs they go through. All of that stuff Mike can be a part of. But the moment they get on the bus from the hotel to the stadium, he'll be watching it on TV just like the rest of us.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Ira about that coming up because it did appear, if you go back and listen, Tom, and I think that's accurate. What you just said is accurate. I know the rules state that, but it does sound like he was trying to leave a little wiggle room in there to find if there's a caveat or a way for him to have some form of greater communication. I don't know what that would be, but that's why I think they were sort of lukewarm about answering definitively how soon the grad assistant or the analyst will be elevated to because once you do that, then that's it.
As Norvell does with a lot of things, it took a lot for him to squeeze that answer out, and I think the reason might be what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it might be that they're maybe looking at some other things, and if that's the case, so whichever answer it is, though, we're going to have the full complement of coaches. And listen, these guys prepare as much as any staff we've had in a long, long time. So, as much as you can be prepared for this disaster, you will be. I think the question for a lot of people moving forward, because Mike didn't give a direct answer on this one, is are there any other coaches affected by this whatsoever? Is anybody even in isolation pending the result of a test? And what other players will or won't be available? That's not going to change magically because the head coach released a statement on Saturday that now Florida State is going to release every update on every player. But it's a natural follow-up question for all of us fans to have in our own mind. We simply don't know.
No, we don't know, and it's going to matter. Devontae Love-Taylor matters. I mean, you got to have your personnel because Florida State found out just how bad they can get and quickly when their starting five is not out there on the offensive line. And it was the damnedest of things to watch one by one guys go down and see how it affected this offensive line to a great degree. Then again, there are two guys who they were hoping would be part of that rotation that really weren't available that time that
two
now
freshmen.
I think are going to be.
Roberts and Schrader.
Yeah, that now are going to be part of that. Miami's track meet against Louisville might have led to great concern amongst Florida State fans about the outcome of this game. But I'll tell you what led to greater concern for me was watching Notre Dame just do what they did to USF in a way that was unholy. And that defense is really good. Really, really good. And I keep thinking about the schedule and just how unfortunate. Okay, so you get Miami this week. Now you'll get a reprieve in Jacksonville State, and then you turn right around and play Notre Dame. And if you're struggling on offense, and we are, that'll hurt your feelings.
I think that Vegas money would be on a freshman starting that game if everything goes to plan. The Jacksonville State or the Notre Dame game by that point?
Probably.
Then you can sell hope, buddy. Even if it's long-term, not immediate return kind of hope.
Probably. When it was 28-21 UCF over Georgia Tech, when it was a 7-point game in the fourth quarter, did you think, all right, okay, I know. Listen, one thing that I think is underrated here that we should talk about is the mindset of a successful team and how that permeates every member of that unit's thinking, right, of how an offense takes a field. UCF has been so successful for so long now offensively that when guys move on and they have to change parts, those that they plug in, whether it's quarterback, running back, wide receiver, if it's part of that offense, they take the field no matter who they're playing against, expecting to score oodles of points. Well, one of the reasons is I think there's been one time in their last 20-something games they've scored less than 30 points as an offense. I mean, they score. It's what they do. It's their identity. They may lack in other areas, but they score points. And I thought about that when the game got kind of tight and Georgia Tech showed some real fight. By the way, Georgia Tech's a lot better than they were a year ago, period. I know what the final is. I know what the total yards are. I watched that game for obvious reasons. I was locked in. But I'll just tell you that Georgia Tech's a lot better than they were. B, you cannot underestimate what confidence does, what belief does, and what prior success does. UCF never bats an eye when that becomes a 7-point game. Their offense just runs and hums like it always does. There's no thought of, the larger picture here. The score is this. We need to do this to run time. None of that nonsense. It's pedal to the metal. This is who we are. This is our identity. It's what we do, and we trust that guy's going to do what's necessary to make this play work. And I'm talking about that guy being the guy next to you, the lineman, the receiver, the running back, the quarterback. It's all of it. And, Florida State is so far removed from being that, so far removed from stepping onto a field and being involved in a game that's close, and yet believing it doesn't matter. So what? It's close. It's a fluke. We're going to beat your ass. Just wait. This quarter is a long way from being over. You watch. We're going to put another 21 up on you. And you can't get that overnight. You have to have sustained success, and we're just so far removed from that. That stood out to me when I was watching that UCF game.
Well, UCF is not fazed by playing Georgia Tech. They've played any number of Power 5 teams, and so they know. There is no doubt.
But what I'm saying is they believe that, and they have believed it for some time, whether they're playing Georgia or LSU,
right.
They think they're going to do that.
Right, and they have enough success to draw back on to say that it absolutely is going to be the case. Not that there's any doubt it's going to be the case. Yeah, well, I think the big part of what you're talking about is pretty fundamental, and it's what you see on our defense and our offense, which is if UCF believes that the guy next to him is going to make the play, Florida State doesn't yet believe that the individual, the person on the field, is going to make the play, right? We've got to get past that part of it. You can see it in the way they line up. They're lining up pre-snap. They're checking on everything. They're getting their spacing right. They're checking the sidelines. It's not instinct yet. Same thing on defense. They're thinking through the way they need to do things. The times that they didn't in our first game against Georgia Tech, sudden change when they're teeing off in the backfield because there is no time to think. Sudden change, go, do. But if it's a standard drive from the 20 or the 25-yard line, we're thinking about where to be in our drops. It's not quite there yet, and that's to be expected with the spring thing. But against Miami, maybe it's just better to play with a little bit more reckless abandon, and if they hit a couple of big plays, well, Miami does that anyway. They're used to it. Within
scheme, within what you do, it's always better to play fast and err on the side of going 100% and at full speed. You might stumble into making a play if you do it at full speed. See LaMarcus Joyner against Clemson as we talk about. Like, screw it up, but screw it up fast. Get to where you're going, man. Make a play. Yeah. And I get it. Again, that does come from lack of reps. That does come from struggling with, another aspect of this, and we'll take a break, but is if you're afraid of getting guys hurt because you're thin, then how hard are you going in those scrimmages? How hard are you going when you do get a chance to be physical, right? So, I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that this team will show real growth each week that goes by.
Yeah, you know where I have faith specifically to that end is Coach Atkins and his comments coming out of week 1. And that performance was better than we expected, and I know that Georgia Tech might be just ass, especially with the guys they were missing. But what he said about the weeks to come, he said, now it's not what's going to happen. It's here's what it is. Here's what did happen.
Here's what happened.
And now I can focus on very small things because I know what didn't work. I'm not guessing on what might not work. I know what didn't work. So now I can come to my coach and ask for specific help with specific facets of the game. That doesn't apply just to the offensive line, but that thought.
Oh, it's a good point. It's a good point. Playing these games are going to cause them to take these massive leaps, ideally. Again, you're lacking personnel in certain areas.
You're hoping that we have the teachers and the developers that we think we have.
That's exactly right. And I do think that. So, therefore, I am encouraged by what I think will happen. Now, unfortunately, we got to get used to the idea that much of the time, the encouraging aspect of what happens in a freaking loss. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. You excited to welcome back more football, not less football, buddy? Diversification is a good thing, and we need it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in the next week or two, you're going to have hockey, and hopefully it ends well, and basketball end. So you got to fill that gap.
Yeah, I found myself doing what I thought I would do over the weekend, watching games, but thinking, we need a few marquee SEC games on here. Not because I have love for all things SEC, just because there are some good teams that reside over there, and I'd like to see them play football. It's simple as that. A little bigger, stronger, faster in some cases is a good thing.
Hey, I saw that Big Ten first weekend would be Michigan-Minnesota. That's an interesting game, especially if Rashad Bateman is allowed to come back and play. So I think by that point, we'll be wanting to welcome back even the Big Ten, as stupid as they were.
Oh, I'm wanting to welcome back everybody. I wish the Pac-12 would do the same. I mean, come on. More the merrier. If we can do it, continue to do it safely, then fine. It's weird watching football in the mindset that we find ourselves in. We've been bad. Florida State's been bad. The record speaks for itself the last 3 years. So it's not like we're wandering down a path we've never been before. It's not like, oh, God, Florida State's terrible. This is stunning. We were pretty terrible last year and terrible the year before and terrible in Jimbo's final year. So, we've been mired in it now. But this is different than that in that we're bad, but the circumstances have shifted, and I have a reason to invest and watch and focus beyond just the job, beyond just the love of, but because I am really curious with all of these setbacks, with all of these things that have happened, what are they going to look like on the 24th against Louisville, or by the time we get to the NC State game late in the year, or obviously the Clemson game, what that's going to look like. But where are you going to be at mentally? Where are we going to be at collectively? Where are we going to be at health-wise? That you can't know. Where are we going to be at in terms of how much of the youth is playing, how many of the veterans are still bought in, playing hard and playing smart, all that stuff.
I chewed on this last week a bunch, and I think that as long as one of them is healthy, you're going to have a freshman quarterback for those games you mentioned.
I think that too, yeah.
Because, if you think about the language that was used Tuesday of last week.
Well, it stood out, yeah.
It's not James is our starter, guys.
No,
I don't know why you're asking me. No. It's the best player's going to play. If this was a different year or a different market that we were covering, and let's say Florida State was the opponent or was just a different squad or program altogether, that language is headline worthy in and of itself.
Yeah, typically if you're good and you have a quarterback controversy, it draws attention. It doesn't around here because we're not good and we're an afterthought nationally, but that doesn't mean what was said doesn't carry weight. You're right. I thought it too when we talked about it. When we played the clip, I was like, whoa, well, that's pretty damning. If you're James Blackman, that basically he just said to you, it's an open competition. If these other guys were up to speed or healthy, you wouldn't be out there, is what he just said.
That's a demotion already.
It is because of what he did in the second half. He reverted back into some terrible habits. The first half, he really does get screwed a little bit. He does not get bailed out by his teammates at all. In particular, Warren Thompson, you're going to have to just, from here on out, if this continues with him, every time I bring his name up, you're going to have to take over the show because I'm afraid of what I'm going to say. But
tonight on ice, the Dallas Stars and the Tampa Bay Lightning, Game 2.
I can't.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I can't with that guy. So, if I make a play or I extend a play or I keep a play alive that was doomed from the get-go and I hit you in the freaking hands, you got to catch the ball. I don't know how you didn't punch him in the throat. That's a drop here and there is going to happen.
Not a concentrated amount of drops in short order.
All the time. It's just
Brady went through that a little bit yesterday.
Yeah, he did. He got screwed a little bit. Sean McCoy will never get an easier touchdown catch in his life thrown to him.
And the funny thing was, I'll bet you smiled because he actually did some things that helped advance the cause yesterday, but it was mostly undone by that drop in the end zone.
Yeah, I didn't smile. I want you to make a play especially when our rather immobile quarterback extends a play and makes a throw.
Yeah, he bailed Wirfs out on that play.
He did.
One of the few miscues for Tristan so far.
Who's really good. Look, it's clear. We did speculate that the only reason LaShawn McCoy would be on the field is because he can catch the ball in the backfield and or pass pro, and that became evident early on in this game. But then when he was given a chance to make a play, oh, my God. Also, I do think it's clear that, the reason the big man was brought in was for that second half and that run in particular, right? The ability to just be a mass of humanity, break one tackle, and go, especially when they stack, knowing that you're running out the clock. He can do that. I thought he ran harder in this game too. I thought he got to where he's starting to get acclimated.
Well, that was the first one where he ran at full speed, like he expected there to be an opening. Sometimes you can see backs that expect contact, and so therefore they're trying to feel their way through the trenches.
Yeah.
He felt it there. And part of the situation is that
they're stacking.
They're essentially in goal line, even though it's on the 46. Get past that.
He ran away from your boy, though, and I was like, okay.
So NFL Next Gen Stats had a number on him, and it was top 3 speed across the sport yesterday in terms of he was well over 20 miles an hour.
That was stunning. Like when he ran away, I went, okay, that's different. That is different. We don't get a lot of that. Let's go.
There's a cool moment earlier in the game, too, and this is where the transition's happening. And this is what we called for on Scuttlebucks and even the show last week, which is just pick one. Pick somebody and stick with them. So there's the catch that's made along the sidelines. This is before the Bucks. This is for his first touchdown, Fournette's. Brady is running to the line of scrimmage. We want to go tempo. And you could see it on the camera that Fournette is running back to where he needs to go, and Brady looks at him and says, "Are you ready? The ball's coming to you." Gets up, and then he feeds the ball to him. If Brady is saying that to you, that means that there's a vote. There's a vote that this guy is the guy we're going to go with.
Pretty good vote. Also, the right side of that line did some damage early and leaves one-on-one out there for Ronald to run. Stiff arm score.
It's good stiff arm.
Well, you got one guy to beat, and you humiliate him. You don't just beat him, humiliate him. It's nice. Just like, get your face over here. I'm going to go ahead and walk in. But if you create one-on-ones for any NFL back, they ought to beat it. And so I'm just good. Do the work. Do the work, guys.
So I know that the world would say the dumbest play of the weekend was the Falcons not, picking up the ball on the onside kick when it's their right to do so. And just fall on it, smother it, end the game. But I got to say, and this didn't make nearly as much headlines, but the second Brady interception, when the defensive back runs out of bounds when he has a touchdown.
Yeah.
And I went back again. There is no reason. I don't think there's anybody in front of him. I can't find anybody. You've got off of a pick. He's running left. He's up the sidelines. He's past the wave of all offensive players. And this dude jets out of bounds with 40 yards to go, and it's probably a pick six.
Is there not having the all-22s hurts you there?
We get those on Wednesday or Thursday this week.
That's what hurts you there to know for sure. He might have seen the angle.
I think he got spooked by his own offensive lineman who was coming down to escort him. Or his own defensive lineman, who's coming to escort him. But my God, they had a pick six and he just ran out of bounds for no reason.
The Bucs game was further proof that nothing ever comes easy. I mean, it's 21-0. You're on the cusp of beating them 40-something to 7, and then all of a sudden things get derailed. You get out of rhythm, and then now it's 21-14 in the fourth quarter. Okay,
and they have the ball.
This is what we're gonna do. This is what we're doing here. Good Lord. But that said, the NFL right now is in an intriguing place. We'll see what the Bucs become, but obviously Seattle, I'm going to circle as, along with Baltimore, along with Kansas City and Los Angeles Chargers do what they do, which is never win close games. There is a throw again in this game, Patrick Mahomes, that, are you kidding me? I mean,
rolling right.
It doesn't make any sense. How did that ball end up there? I'm still trying. The end zone view doesn't even tell you how it got there.
That's a huge play in the game, though.
Yes, it is.
Because not just for that reason, but for the call that was missed.
Yeah.
So Tyreek Hill takes off his helmet. It wasn't falling off. He takes it off. And this isn't Tyreek Hill bashing. If it was Mecole Hardman, I'd say the same thing.
Right.
Takes off his helmet. They go for 2. You can assess that penalty for the unsportsmanlike of taking off your helmet on the 2-point conversion.
Yeah, which shouldn't be a penalty to begin with, but But
that's how you get to overtime.
Yeah,
with that tie score. It's a hell of a no call.
Kicks made, baby. Kicks made.
Oh.
Important kicks made.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, kicks made, and they reside in Tampa. I don't care. 37 yards, 34 yards. Those kicks aren't made in Tampa.
So the PAT to go up 21-0, I thought for sure was going to be missed. Something about the camera angle.
Well,
I'm convinced it would have been if it wasn't for Suck Up.
It's something about the fact that we don't make 3 extra points in a row ever is probably what it was. Ira Schoffel, WarChant.com. Going to join us next. to Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Good Monday, Florida State, Miami week. I know you got to kind of wrestle to find the emotion a little bit. Dig deep, friends, dig deep. We're online at ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you're going to listen live via the streaming free always. If you miss portions of the program, you can find it later on. We'll post it to Apple Podcasts. That'll include the interview that I do every Monday with my good buddy Ira Schoffel, warchant.com. We'll bring him in a second. Email the show if you want. It's jcs at 979espnradio.com. On Twitter, it's at jcameron.show. All guests appear via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway and 833 West Gain Street. Online at phoneherotlh.com. Let's do what I just referenced. Let's bring him in. Ira Schoffel, warchant.com, joins us now. Hello, good sir.
How you doing, Jeff?
I'd be better if I felt more engaged in this FSU Miami week. Another setback for Florida State. I think Mike Norvell may be the most unlucky individual to ever take over a program. I mean, he's a candidate, certainly, on a short list of people that could have so many things go wrong. And I'm not even, like, taking a swipe or coming at this with a jaundiced eye. I just mean, objectively speaking, it is absurd the amount of things that he and this program is having to deal with fairly consistently. And now over the weekend we learned that COVID-19, unfortunately, is one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one of those years. I think you got to give him. I would give him credit up until this point for I think handling everything that's been thrown at him pretty well. I mean, going back to the spring getting shut down early, some roster issues here and there, some guys leaving the team, and then managing the team from afar during the quarantine. I think he did all that really well. I mean, I think I'd give him really good marks on everything he's done as head coach, other than maybe that season opener against Georgia Tech. But this is the cherry on top. I mean, you'd like to think there's not going to be much worse than this, but having to coach your team in their biggest game of the season against your rival, it was the game 1 year ago that caused the former head coach to get fired, and because it was such an abysmal performance, and then now you add in the fact that they look really good. You did not look very good in your one game, and you can't be there for the game. So it's feels like the topper. You hate to say never, you can't top this one, but I don't think anybody wants to see what would have to top this one.
Florida State keeps finding ways, though. Like, I kept thinking it can't get worse than this, and then, oh, well, here you go. Get you a little some of this. I like Chris Thompson. I've had a chance to talk to him. I know you have, too. He's got oodles of experience. He's a former head coach. He's a guy that, he's been around the block. Let's just put it that way. I think he'll do fine on game day. Talk about, though, some of the things that Florida State's up against beyond a matchup that favors Miami. Not having the head coach there, as you see it, how does that affect game day and I guess this week of preparation, if at all?
Well, I think we know a lot more right now about the week of preparation, and they actually did do a practice on Sunday. Well, first of all, Saturday they had a walkthrough, and Mike Norvell said it was the first time he could remember missing a practice or a game since he's been involved in sports, really. And he said it was emotional. He really had a tough time with it, and they had just found out that morning that he had retested and was found positive. So he let the other coaches know Saturday morning. I don't think they had much in place for him to help during that walkthrough. But then on Sunday night, when they held their Sunday night practice, they've got him on it. He's can watch several vantage points from practice from his home. He's watching computers where he's got live feeds to practice. He's got a way he can communicate in real time with the staff. So that part of it, other than I think the biggest difference there would be just not having his energy. I mean, that's one of the things you and I, when we were out there in the spring, you could just feel that he brings an energy to practice, and so they're not going to have that. But in terms of him seeing what's happening, they feel good about that. Him being able to communicate to the coaches, they feel good about that. He's also, during team meetings, he can address the team. He's running those meetings. He's able to pop into a segment meeting. So all of that, I think, during the week, they feel pretty good about how they'll be able to handle. It sounds like there's still some questions to be ironed out about game day. And, as far as, what we've been told, if they elevate an assistant coach into that extra coaching spot, and it would be Tony Tokars, who was Norvell's tight ends coach at Memphis. He took an offensive analyst position here at Florida State. He would become an on-the-field coach for that game day. And if that happens, then Mike Norvell really can't participate much during the course of a game, because then you'd be over your allotted number of coaches. It sounded like he was very aloof about giving definitive statements about game day. It almost sounded like they're still trying to figure out a way maybe he could be involved more on game day. And I think if they did that, then I don't think you could promote the other on-the-field coach. And we'll have to see if that works out. From what I understood over the weekend, it didn't sound like he's going to be able to do much on game day, but it sounds like Mike Norvell is not taking no for an answer and is trying to find out if there's some way he can have input during the course of the game.
Well, I am curious. Let's go down this road, because I think everybody would want clarification as much as we could try to find out what's what on game day and what the rules are. My understanding, big picture here, and I'm not getting into the finer details, is that if you aren't available to coach your team as a head coach for whatever reason, in this case it's a medical reason, you can't exactly like call in from the house and tell your OC or anybody else suggestions. I think that's a rule. Like, you can't do that, can you?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, they had, this was all discussed during the offseason, between the conferences and also the NCAA to figure out what would happen in this situation. And, the guidance, I guess, that was given down was that, as you said, I mean, the coach could coach remotely all week, but on game day itself, if he's not there, if he's not the head coach, then he can't be running, he can't be calling in like Earl Weaver from the dugout back in the day. He can't be, trying to manage from some other location. But again, the person I spoke to over the weekend made a comment about, we're still trying to see what options we have. And Mike Norvell left that window open a couple times as to at least, again, I think it's one of those things where the NCAA has said this, or the ACC has said this, and they're trying to go back with some what ifs. Well, what if we do this? What if we try that? And maybe try to get a different interpretation. So what I would say is I just don't think Mike Norvell is willing to concede that he won't be able to have an impact on game day. As it stands right now, though, I don't think he has that option as of the current time.
It's strange, and a lot of people will roll their eyes when they hear me say this. Prior to finding out that Coach Norvell unfortunately came down with COVID-19 and was going to have to quarantine and be away from the team, I actually thought Florida State might be a little bit more game in this contest on Saturday night. I thought Florida State might surprise some people. Looks like Vegas kind of felt that way too when you look at the line that came out. I think a lot of people thought it might be double digits at least, or somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple touchdowns, just based on Miami's impressive offensive performance against Louisville and how abysmal Florida State looked. But I think the sense is that a rivalry game, teams play over their head, they play with great pride, but also I think that defensive unit for Florida State can play a lot more stout, certainly than, say, Louisville did, and that it might be somewhat of a game into the second half. But I just don't know how much that disrupts anything, and if the woe is me mentality we reference all the time doesn't creep back in, it's hard to know. Do you have a feeling about how they'll play on Saturday?
I asked, Adam Fuller, kind of what he's seen from the response from the team last week after the loss, and then also, what it was like in practice. And both he and Chris Thompson, the acting head coach, tight ends coach, and acting head coach, both said they've been, just very impressed by the way the players have responded. And I had heard that last week that, if we were worried about the way the team handled that loss to Georgia Tech, to not be, that they handled it really well and they were still determined, still working hard. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. And I think to some degree, a lot of times, and you're a sporting gentleman, Jeff.
Yeah.
A lot of times when a key player goes out and everybody else kind of raises their level of play, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Florida State in these practices and in the game, the players kind of try to raise their level of play to, their head coach is down. They got to lift him up. The issue is, we just don't know if they're good enough. I don't think it's going to be a matter of whether or not FSU has the right mindset. I do think that was a problem last year when FSU played Miami under the former coaching staff, and I think that's part of the reason a change needed to happen. But I do think, from everything we've heard so far about where things are with this team and this coaching staff, I don't think that's going to be the problem on Saturday. I think the question is going to be, can they stop Brevin Jordan? Can they stop De'Aaron King? Can they do anything with that defensive line?
Yeah, I said that too. I was asked that question over the weekend and again today on a radio show. What, do you think Florida State will show up? And I said, I think they'll show up. I think they'll play hard. I just don't know if they're good enough. And I think ultimately that's what we keep getting back to, right? It seems like we say that a lot, but there are certain things you just can't overcome save for through recruiting and slowly player development, but it's game 2, and I don't know how much further along they can get. This is, without question, Ira, the weirdest Florida State-Miami week. We've seen some weird ones, and there have been circumstances that led us to believe it wouldn't be competitive, and thus the energy wasn't there, but I don't think we ever could have anticipated this. What a nightmare. I'll talk to you later in the week, brother.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, take care. That's Ira Schoffel, warchant.com. I don't have anything else for him right now. I think we're all just sitting here in amazement. I did a show this morning, David Mouton down there in South Florida and his partner, Mark. They asked me, was I surprised that the line came out and wasn't like 28? I said, well, go easy here. First of all, Miami's defense looks terrible. And I don't think Miami's defense is terrible. But they didn't play well in the game against Louisville. Louisville has a couple of dynamic playmakers that Florida State doesn't appear to have currently. So there is that. But I think you can move the ball on them if you don't do dumb things. I don't know that this line can necessarily hold up the way that Louisville's did. But I do think Florida State's defense will be better than Louisville's. Of course it will be. And I think that Miami, who's had a relatively easy go of it offensively, might get slowed some. You have to hope then at that moment that they begin to question a little bit. I don't know. Can you get the game to halftime and put some game pressure on the team that's so heavily favored? You hate having to angle for ways that Florida State has a chance to be in the contest in the second half. But I think that's where we're at. I think if we're approaching this pragmatically and we're looking at it as realists, we'd say, what has to happen for Florida State to be in the game? Well, I think you got to get a little bit of help from Miami. It happens from time to time, put the ball on the ground. Maybe there's an interception, something that swings momentum and gets a team beginning to believe a little bit longer. You let the underdog hang around long enough in a rivalry game. Pressure begins to shift. Do you get it into the second half and Miami's staring at the scoreboard thinking, why is it 10-10 or something like that? Then maybe you got a chance to pull off a shocker. Because let's be honest, we're not talking about, I think most Florida State fans this week, collectively that mindset is don't humiliate yourself on national television. Try not to get beat 55-0. Try not, can we not, let's not add to the annals of this great rivalry with one of the ones that turn out to be an outlier. You never like to, we've both had it. Both sides have had that 47-0 ass stomping where you're like, whoa, remember that year? And everybody kind of who was alive for that or were a part of that is like, oh, I don't like to talk about it. If you're on the wrong side of that, I think a lot of us are kind of, don't let me have lived through one of those moments where I I was there. I remember it. Or, yeah, I watched it. We all saw it coming too. You can picture that conversation 10 years from now where we think back on what was and what changed over those 10 years and how Florida State figured it out eventually, and maybe such and such was the catalyst for the shift, right? Well, a lot of times it takes an all-time low light for the shift to happen. See the Wake Forest game. Many of you were in attendance for that. I was too. It was a cold night. We knew walking out of that stadium that, we'd hit a real low. But if you recall in that moment, a lot of us said, well, this will be it. I mean, they got nowhere to go now. I mean, look what happened. It's Wake Forest. They got to fire Jeff now. They're going to have to. What are we doing? You can't just say we're a play away. Coach Bowden kept saying we're a play or two away. That night with Wake Forest, there was no play or two away. So, there's that moment in time where things shift and then you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and sometimes it takes longer than you'd like it to, and it's very frustrating and all of that's true. Well, this can't really be that because they've already made a change, and we're in it for the long haul. And so a lot of people are looking at this like, well, if we just take this beating, we're just going to have to take this beating and nothing is going to change. Well, that's correct. Nothing is going to change anytime soon, so you better pull yourself up by the bootstraps and not take that beating. Get out there and give yourself a fighting chance in the second half. Take strides forward. We talked all year, really in the offseason and certainly directly after the Georgia Tech game, that this is not going to be a season where Florida State accomplishes anything in the way of a run at there are no divisions this year. You're not better than Clemson. You're not better than Notre Dame. You're not going to amass a bunch of wins here. You knew that in year one. What did you want to see? Well, you wanted to see improvement. You wanted to see buy-in. You wanted to see smarter, better play consistently, even if it was on the wrong end of the final score. So, there's a way to come out of this game against Miami disappointed that you lost to Miami, if in fact that happens, but encouraged by what you saw. Put it this way, I'd like to believe they're going to beat Jacksonville State next weekend. Could we gain a little momentum if all of a sudden you lose 24-17 and then you beat Jacksonville State and each week you saw them improve? I don't know. I mean, you're looking for little things here, unfortunately. I hate being in this position. It makes me want to throw my computer. But I am, again, a realist, and I'm not going to pretend we're not in this position. That was Ira Schoffel on the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway and 833 West Gain Street. Online at phoneherotlh.com.
More than it's ever gonna get you around. Replace your gaskets and you'll never trust.
Did you see the kindness the Big Ten gave the Nebraska Cornhuskers to start their year? Well, they're largely getting killed for the fact that they whined about their schedule, and they've been whining all along. And the Big Ten went, well, here you go. Here's a little Ohio State, Wisconsin, Penn State for that ass. Have a good one. That's good stuff. I love it when you see the obvious. Well, here you go, guys.
Oh, you want to play?
Oh, okay.
Well, we'll give you games.
Oh, so we'll see if they're improved.
Want to go back to the Big 12? Exhaust all options? Go for it.
I think they do. Yeah, I think they do. I would suggest that that's probably true. I think they would like to go there. Just like I think if you're, Maryland or somebody, you'd like to leave the Big Ten.
Do they really?
Well, the money is great.
Making 200% what they used to make.
Getting that ass beat every week, but maybe there's some in the collective alumni base that would like to win a game every now and again. Sure. It's like, hey.
As the president of the university or the athletic director, you could be of two different minds, right? But one of them would be, well, our budget is secure. While so many are not, ours is.
Yeah, ours is. Now let's go out and finish this 2-10 campaign with gusto.
That's on the coach. I'll try and get a coach in here who can
win a game every now and again.
Hey, we're going to get those checks.
Raiders open tonight. The Las Vegas era begins. Sometimes hard to take that seriously, but I would have loved to have seen this game with a full house. Think about how far Las Vegas has come. Every sports league under the sun said, no way, can't have a team there. All that terrible gambling, shame. And now everybody flocks there. It's their out. And the Vegas Knights have done great, and now we'll see what the Raiders do. But in terms of fan participation and the stadiums and the experience, sure, it would be fairly awesome. I'd love to go to a game in Las Vegas. Imagine the weekends, the trips that people are planning.
Oh, well, that's what they're doing right now. They're investing in that message for other fans. It used to be that Visit Las Vegas was its own thing about what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But now that sports betting has become a little bit more normalized across the country, they've got to find a new message. And here it is. And it says, come watch your team here. It literally says that in the ad.
Yeah.
So people are pining for a better time like you are right now. When do we play the Raiders on the road? Like if you're in the AFC West, you're in business. You can make it an annual venture.
Whenever the world straightens out and we've got a handle on the coronavirus, trips to Vegas. You every year fans are going to eagerly anticipate the schedule release. Do we get the Raiders this year on the road? Oh, you don't want them at home.
Right.
You want Raiders on the road. Here we go.
Do you think their AFC West opponent, I don't know, fans who live in Kansas City, they might be looking for a trip to Vegas? Yeah, I think so.
And you saw they did the right thing. They invited the Killers, who are from Las Vegas tonight. They'll be playing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I did not see that.
Yeah, so they are. They're playing at halftime. And the first game ever in the new Las Vegas Stadium. They said, yes, we'll be there with rose-colored glasses, buddy. But they're trying to make it as special as they can without, fans, which would have been awesome. I do feel bad for all of these sports teams. The Rangers get a respite, I guess, or a reprieve because they're gonna house the World Series there. I think is what I read.
Plus half
plus
of
the playoffs,
the play-in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you get that something that you get thrown a bone there, and the Raiders. I don't know what they'll get, but these teams that open a brand new building. I mean, the Rams. That place is unreal. And you and I drove right past where that is. It's hard to imagine.
It is impossible to imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, because where we drove, you're like, where can they build a stadium? Well,
they'll find a place.
Well, like they do in most cities, they'll just, it's not quite China where they kill the homeless, but they just reposition them and begin building. That's how that goes. Because where we were. That's what you would have had to have done on your way to the airport.
Yeah, you can get $1.30 on the dollar for your property, but we're going to make billions off of it. That's how that works.
Yes, that's exactly how that works. But I need to drive past there now because I want to see what that looks like. That changes the trip to the airport, sir. Especially if you go that back way where we got the chance to go right by where the Bad News Bears play.
But that was amazing.
It's cool as hell. Yeah.
Christy was taken aback at how the two of us were like,
we were giddy. I want to stop the car.
There it is.
How incredible is that? And when I go back now, whenever that movie's on, by the way, that is a movie that whenever it's on, you have to watch. I mean, the first one. If you're flipping around and it's like, whoa, Bad News Bears, I see. But when you watch them play and practice, you go, man, I know right where that is, but there are only a couple of little signs that make you realize, because the rest of it's like farm pasture.
Yeah,
it's just,
exactly.
It's nuts. There's nothing really there.
And now it's concrete and sadness.
That's a name for an album. Concrete and Sadness.
It's a band out of Houston.
They're an opening act currently. But in time, that Concrete and Sadness wasn't bad. Good name for a band, too. That's how that conversation goes on your
Rex
way.
McGinn and the Lassos. Concrete and Sadness.
Oh, man. I do think they'll play well tonight. And, oh, by the way, got the win over my mom. 4 up now. And then if I get this one, it'll be 5-0 to start the young season. Off her game.
You're feasting right now.
Well, let's just say the weekend saw me very grateful for UCF being the juggernaut that they are. Because Duke didn't do us any favors.
No, Duke did no favors to anybody whatsoever.
Well,
and Boston College, I think they're playing North Carolina next week. That was some of the releases today. Florida State's kickoff against Jacksonville State is 4 p.m.
Yeah,
that game is going to be on regional sports networks, so most likely Fox Sports or Sun Sports here in Tallahassee. But I believe the 3:30 ABC or ESPN ACC game is North Carolina Boston College. It got at least a little bit more interesting because BC's defense looked competently coached by their new defensive head coach.
I guess a lot of that game is different if Duke doesn't turn it over twice in the red zone, especially inside the freaking 5-yard line where Holmes is walking in and just can't hold on to the football like an ass. I mean, there's plenty there that would have changed the complexion of that game, but.
And then the dead fish does what the dead fish does, which is peters out.
It reminded me why I loathe that character. And I always I get long-term, big picture. I know what he is in the coaching community, the way he's regarded. But whenever I hear an analyst, and they do it all the time, well, just such a well-coached team. Well, that didn't look like a well-coached team in any way, shape, or form against Boston College.
Well, and you're seeing it still, college and the NFL every weekend, things that just make you scratch your head. Was it the Baltimore-Houston game is red zone, so all these things blend together. But you go for 2 early. Like, you don't just get it down to 1, and that way it's an 8-point game, and you continue hope and continue the game. The worst fake punt I've ever seen by Carolina against the Buccaneers yesterday. It's a 4th and 2 from the 35.
The whole world knew it was coming, but boy, the reaction is good. That is a shot downhill right into the thigh. That is well
It's a
played.
great play. You can make a lot of great plays in the NFL if you know what's coming. Just run your offense. You have McCaffrey. He wasn't hurt at that time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, or if you're going to fake it, do it from the your own 45 when maybe it's a little less obvious.
Not our 35.
Yeah, that was
what.
I think what's interesting is watching how many teams. Well, I think the embrace of modern metrics is a really good thing. We are seeing changes in the way people view the 2-point conversion, when you do it, when you don't, and largely that's gotten to be much better. And there's the math behind it, and I get all of that, but you still see the occasional randomness of a decision where you go, what is that? Is that just freaky, scared to death, don't know what to do here, don't have the chart? Because these things are spelled out. You can find them on the interwebs. You don't even have to be an analytics expert from, Cal, or, just pull this up.
There used to be, was it the Times that had it, like the 2-point chart, or like the
New York Times had the 4th down bot.
Okay.
It was the 4th down bot. When to go for it, when not to go for it, time, score, where you were, distance, all of that was.
And then it was some franchises had the 2-point chart. And the NFL analysts like Ditka and others like, that's nonsense. You don't need any of that.
Mike Ditka. Yeah, of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, the 2-point chart was that right from the get-go when they changed the rules. Everybody had their little chart. But then after that, I'd say that it got more complicated as, well, I think you got to go back to the Bill Belichick decision against the Colts. And I think it was a Monday night or a Sunday night football game. We're deep in his own end. He did the math in his head and went, we're not stopping Peyton Manning 2 more times. So I'm going to go for it here because 4th and 2 here is much more likely for me to gain than getting a stop on this guy twice more.
Yeah.
And I thought, especially with the way his defense was playing, okay, he embraced it.
Saw Bruce found a way to screw it up again yesterday too, second quarter. Carolina's got the ball on their own 40-yard line. You're going to call a timeout. They've got 2 left. Where do you think that punt's going to go?
Yeah.
Best case, where it went, to the 20-yard line. And he calls a pass out of that, and then Donovan Smith gets hurt, and you call a draw to the side that the left tackle just got hurt on, okay? And you end up saving them a timeout with incompletions. So 40 seconds doesn't take off the clock because you call a timeout right away to get bad field position, to allow them a chance, however small, to get it into the locker room at 21-3 or 21-7. Because you're not going to go march 80 yards with no timeouts in a minute and a half. Well, why would you even try that up 21-0? The hell's wrong with you?
You wouldn't. You'd want to run out the clock and make them use it up and then go the distance if you had to at all. And oh, by the way, it was important to me, too, because we sometimes mention on this show the importance of understanding in-game props. And I had taken the Bucks at -7 for the second quarter. Comfortably ahead there. Nice. We were all good to go, and I thought, don't give that back. Don't do that. Yeah. We're good here.
No, they were trying, and that's so. I was texting my buddies down there, and
-6.5.
One of them said, "What's with the negativity?" I'm saying, "Well, listen, guys, we're not. This isn't like the middle step of the process where we're going to be happy with 11-5 and a win in the playoffs, and then we go home. Like we're now judging the Bucks by you got to win the whole thing or not." And if this a-hole is going to continue to make these types of decisions,
he's going to lessen your chances of doing exactly that.
When the margin is thin, when you're playing the Saints again, or when you're playing whoever it is that rises to the top between now and the playoff time, you need to make all good decisions across the board. And God, you can't count on Bruce to make a good one inside of 2 minutes.
I just think, but again, I think that there's evidence as we move forward that Brady will take greater hold of the reins. Did you see him talking to Leftwich on the sideline a couple times in that second quarter? Those didn't look like friendly conversations.
Also, the hug it out at the end of the game. Who knows who's doing the talking and who's doing the listening in that moment? But
you're seeing a little bit of something there that excites me. I think that sooner rather than later, he's going to be taking hold of how things are called and why.
Right. It's one of those. Tom is looking at the play chart in the meeting room. Bruce walks in. Guys, how's it going? Bruce, we don't need you right now. We got it. Thank you. Not picking up his eyes from the paper.
He's just straight
He's looking down.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce. We're good.
We're good. We got this, buddy.
We're good. There's a big bottle of water. Looks like you could use some. It's out
Go
there.
pour a stiff one for you, buddy. I got this right here.
It's the big TB12 bottle. Go ahead.
We got it. Just leave the money on the table.
Yeah, it's not free.
It's a discount.
Yeah.
It's a discount for you.
TB 12% discount.
Just a bit of a discount. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. What a devastating night, should say afternoon, for the National Football League in Week 2. Good Lord, one after the other high-profile player, whether that's Saquon Barkley or Nick Bosa, done for the 2019 season.
Don't worry, we can just transfer money from your account into a portfolio with your son, and it's gone.
I am curious, man. That's a devastating. It's a torn ACL. The 49ers have injuries everywhere right now. Obviously, it didn't hurt them against the sorry-ass Jets, but they are a mess. They lost Solomon Thomas with a knee injury as well. He was their third pick in the 2017 draft. I mean, it was number 3 pick overall. They've lost some guys now. You look through that lineup, it's one after the other. God, in fact, I'm pulled it up right here to look at it. Anyhow, Saquon Barkley out for the Giants, torn ACL. Don't worry, don't mind. I know it's not human to bring this up, but he was my fantasy pick. It's okay. It happens. Actually, poor Barkley, man. I just get this sinking feeling more and more with him that career is going to be wasted in New York. Not only because they're not any good and they're not close to being any good, which is a real problem, but now he suffers injuries, and you just feel like the weight of the world is on that career.
He looked like he had a broken hand earlier in the game, like not 5 plays it felt like, because he landed funny on a tackle, and I thought, oh, boy, so he's going to be done today. And then he came back in the game. Next thing you know, we've got bad news to give you on NFL Red Zone.
Yeah.
You play the injury music, and you go, oh, no, who's it going to be? And then Saquon has the ball, and you go, oh, it's got to be the running back. It always has to be the running back.
You know, I didn't note when Christian McCaffrey scored the touchdown, that's when he got hurt. I didn't see it. I couldn't tell. I saw the effort to tackle him, but I didn't see the ankle do anything weird.
So before they cut to the extra point, you could see he was having a hard time getting to the sidelines. I
must have missed that.
You know, Jamie's Vikings were getting killed, so she didn't really care. But I looked over her. I said, well, that might have been a costly touchdown for Carolina.
It did appear so, and I missed it completely. I think I was so disgusted. I was like, And then I, didn't notice that he was struggling to come off the field. But high ankle sprains are no joke. That takes, especially for a fast twitch guy like him, that's problematic. Now, what do they say, 4 to 6 weeks with that?
Yes, that's Schefter today saying 4 to 6 weeks.
Drew Lock for the Broncos.
He's out minimum 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Cortland Sutton, torn ACL. Peace out.
That's Tampa Bay's opponent this weekend is the Broncos.
Garoppolo with a high ankle sprain with San Francisco while we were adding to the injury list. Devontae Adams for the Packers. That's a hamstring. Never good at that position. Well, never good, period, with a hamstring, but that's not good. Tavon Young, the talented corner for the Ravens. That's we'll see. He missed all of 2019 with a neck injury. Hate to see guys who have injuries come back from injuries and then get hurt again. Achilles tendon tear from Malik Hooker, the safety with the Colts, who has a great last name. Brandon Sheriff, the guard for Washington. It's a knee for him, the offensive lineman. Byron Jones for the Dolphins. Raheem Mostert for the running back for the... I told you the 49ers have just screwed. A good injury, if there's such a thing, might have been that the Chargers watched Tyrod Taylor go down, and he was playing terribly anyhow, and look at this. They may have themselves something. Herbert looked good.
So he had to check into a hospital, Tyrod did.
Oh, I hope he's okay. It was a chest injury. I know that.
It was a chest injury that was suffered after warm-ups and before kickoff. That's scary.
That is weird.
That's what I read that yesterday, and I thought, did somebody punch him? Were they getting hyped up in the locker room and he took a punch to the chest? Or now that I read today that he was released from the hospital, that's not good. That must have been chest pains.
Well, there's a follow-up to that story now. They're saying that they thought he heard it on Friday, actually.
Okay.
That he had a rib injury that circled in that was pulling at, so I think it's not a big deal.
He must have kept it quiet because Herbert said that he was told he was the starter 5 to 10 seconds before kickoff, quote, unquote.
That's a hell of a thing. It might have served him well.
He's shaky. Yeah, I agree.
It might have served him well.
I'm not sure if I'm an NFL quarterback. Let's not tell him.
Yeah,
let's not
say
just
that.
tell him, get out there and slap him on the butt and go.
I thought he played he was fun. 22 of 33 for 311.
Did you see the collision with the linebacker?
And he takes the linebacker out.
Oh, my God.
When that happened, I thought you're going to get killed. You're going to get killed, get out of bounds. You just knocked the linebacker out. Good for you. That was amazing. Homeboy was out.
That was like Minkovich tossing Carson last night.
Yeah.
See that in the backfield?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
The worst news of the day. Well, no, I shouldn't say the worst news of the day. The bad news just keeps getting worse for Minnesota, whose defense can go to hell. They're just an awful football team. They're not going
already there.
They're going to go 2-14. Anthony Barr is done.
They're at the bar in hell. You arrive, you guys made it early. Sure did. We knew it was coming.
Grand opening, grand closing in Minnesota. They had a window for about an hour. Peace, done. They're not even close.
No, they went all in on Cousins. They had 2 years. They didn't cash, and that's that.
Jeez. Oof. You know who else is done? Carson Wentz is not any good. He now currently leads the league in off-target throws. They're terrible. They're terrible.
That's a problem. Can't block it up. I saw the interception in the end zone yesterday.
Yeah.
That was never a good idea.
They're not good. A stat that blew me away, and I got to give Director Matthew credit for sending it to me today, but I passed it along, as friends do, to Corey Clark.
Oh, yeah.
He needs to know these things. It involves his team. I mean, you'd want to know this.
I know this stat. It's made the rounds.
So, entering Sunday, teams who scored 39 points with no turnovers, as the Falcons did, were a robust 440-0 all time. Well, since 1933, let's be specific. Since 1933, 440-0 if you scored 39 points and didn't turn the football over. That stat now reads 440-1 because the Falcons happened. Fond of blowing leads in epic fashion. And that's not the oft overused epic. That is appropriately used epic. The Falcons blow leads in epic fashions, ways that we've seldom or in some cases have never seen before.
Small fantasy complaint. You said the number of points. You said they didn't turn the ball over. I had Julio Jones. He had 2 catches for 25 yards in that game. How's that possible?
I had Calvin Ridley's. How that's possible, baby. That's my guy.
My heart goes out to Dirk Cutter today. It really does. That must be a tough pill to swallow on the flight home from Dallas.
Man, it is remarkable to now see the numbers that Matt Ryan is putting up 2 weeks in a row.
That's correct.
That'll hurt
Prolific
your feelings.
numbers.
Prolific numbers. Well, you can't get mad at him.
Oh, I'm not mad at him.
No,
not the least.
That is something to behold.
No, that was very predictable. If you read the tea leaves properly, yes.
Will Fuller, who's always hurt for the Texans. Jesus, man. Is that guy ever going to be on the field?
No.
I mean, good Lord. And then a whole host of other injuries. So, not good.
Bruce Irvin, knee injury for the Seahawks last night.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
In what was an incredible game.
That was great.
Oh, buddy. I kept wanting to go to bed. I couldn't. It was incredible.
Yep.
It was incredible.
Even when Seattle scores to go up 2 scores, it's just, fourth quarter, you're thinking, I don't know. Cam's been on it tonight.
Yeah,
let's watch it for one more drive.
He played better than I gave him credit
and then,
for.
boom, Edmund over the top, and we got a ball game again.
Well, and then I'd point out that the reason it was such a good game is not only did it come down to a wire and a goal line stop and a hell of a hit on a huge man, but that's a cover, baby.
Oh,
by
yes,
a half point, that's a cover is what that is.
Everybody and the sports books in America, be it in their living room or the proper ones, were on the edge of their seat or outright standing for that play.
Well, I went from laying in bed watching the conclusion of that game to, okay, it's time to sit up a little bit here. We got to get locked in for what may or may not happen.
How about that 3rd and short call for Seattle on their final drive?
I know.
You're not going to go for it after that.
I know.
And I understand you're forcing a team to go down the field and score a touchdown. It's not a field goal ties and go to overtime.
Right. Yep.
But if you're going to throw that pass, I would think you're indicating that you're going to run it up the middle or give Russell Wilson an RPO of sorts on 4th down.
So are you with me now on Russell? I mean, not that you ever had a problem with Russell. But
I've never had a problem.
But he's a freak. I didn't know. Listen, as much as I love Russell, and I was thinking about this last year when the Bucs lost to the Saints. I mean, to the Seahawks in overtime. Like the one guy you couldn't give the ball to on the coin flip was him. But what I was thinking was, I knew he was great. We knew he was great. He's done his whole career. He's been great. Did you know those numbers about the down the field shots? That he's the best in the league. It's not close on passes over.
No, the next gen stuff. No, I did not know that
it's
until
insane.
last night. Yeah.
And the way they showed the over-the-shoulder stuff.
But you know what? It feels right. You don't hardly ever see a free safety able to call a fair catch by undercutting a route down the field.
Yeah,
it's always one-on-one. It's always to the correct shoulder. You know, if it needs to be a lead, it's a lead. If it needs to be back shoulder, it's back shoulder.
It's incredible, though. It is just in stride. It's like if you're a receiver, if you're Metcalf or anybody else that plays for him, and you somehow get released a few years from now or you get traded, you're spoiled. You're screwed.
Oh, if I'm Doug Baldwin, my whole life is henceforth for my kids, my grandkids. It's all thanks to Russell Wilson.
It's true. It's true. Final hour, forthcoming. Stay with. Jeff Cameron Show, at least for today. It is my pleasure to be with you. Thanks so much for tuning on in. Normally, we are geeked. I guess I kind of am. I'm on a fact-finding mission. I'm very analytical right now, very focused, less emotional. Normally, FSU Miami week sees us all kinds of jacked, a little bit more subdued Florida State Miami week, but not because I don't care, but just because I'm looking for something a little bit different. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you go to listen live via the streaming free. That's always. If you want to catch up, you're busy too. I get it. We post the show to Apple Podcasts. Go find it whenever you can. Rate it 5 stars if you're so inclined. To those that have, we certainly appreciate it. If you're one of those, again, it helps others find the show, so thanks for doing that. You can email us if you like, jcs at 979espnradio.com. On Twitter, it's at @JCameronShow. Hello, YouTubers. So, again, let's recap a little bit. Florida State Miami is as strange as I can remember it. Florida State in a terribly difficult transition and then losing the services, or we think anyhow, on game day of their head coach in what would have been his first Florida State-Miami game, which I can only imagine. I've never been a head coach at a college, but when you take over a college, you're well aware of your university's rivals and how important that is to alumni, boosters, fans. But in this case, when you take over at Florida State University, even if it's from afar and you have no personal connection to the university in any way, because it's been one of the best rivalries in all of college football, and you're immersed in college football and care about college football, you know it like the back of your hand, the way that us non-Ohio State Michigan fans understand what that rivalry means to the country, to college football as a whole. What Oklahoma-Texas means, what, USC... Well, they don't really have Notre Dame, I guess, maybe. But the point would be, everybody knows this rivalry. It has spent the vast majority of its existence post-1980 whatever in prime time, because the two programs have such cachet historically. And once again, in prime time we will be. Now, some wish this game would kick off at 7 a.m. on Nickelodeon. That is not going to be the case. It is going to be for the world to watch, so they better show up and they better play hard, or they'll get humiliated for the nation to see yet again. It isn't something that we're immune to these days. Been on the wrong side of a lot of those ass beatings. None of them sting nearly as bad as the ones that come at the hands of Miami. How does this affect their chances? I don't know. I feel bad for Mike Norvell. This would have been his big moment. His first real big moment, other than when you lead the team out of the tunnel for game one, which he did get to do. This is the one you circle as a new coach. And again, you can come from Memphis, or you can come from North Dakota State, or you can come from Liverpool. If you know anything about college football, you know this is a big game, and I can't imagine what it's like to have that taken from you. So my condolences to him, and I wish him well, along with his family. I'm not going to try to make it too dire. I'm just saying it is a health issue, so you do wish people well. Hopefully he's okay. Certainly, judging by the press conference, he looked fine. He looked healthy. He looked like he might be one of the fortunate individuals, if you can describe it that way, who's asymptomatic. I don't know, but one thing's for certain: it doesn't appear he's going to be on the sideline Saturday night. And how does Florida State respond to that is an awfully big question, and I don't know the answer to that. I think they'll play better than most in our fan base, Tom, think they'll play. Not because, they found some sort of secret, but there was more in them, especially on the defensive side of the ball, than we saw. Does Hamsar Nasruddin play? Don't know as of right now. If he's going to play, that's a big deal. He's a big, big part of them being better on defense. He triggers. He's not afraid. He's a tackling machine. He's physical. He's one of the best athletes on the team. There's no understating the loss of Nasruddin for this defense, especially when you're trying to lead the way for some younger players or those that might be timid who don't trust themselves yet.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup just because in watching Miami-Louisville on Saturday, I saw something out of De'Aaron King that I didn't expect. And that leads into my feeling for the game, what we expect to see. And the funny thing is, what I saw out of King actually makes me feel better, even though it was to Miami's good. And I'll explain it this way. So King dropping back. Louisville clearly wanted him to make decisions and go through progressions and make throws. He did.
Yeah, that's because Louisville's defense is terrible.
Well, but beyond that, I mean, it's still a process that either you kind of have or you don't, right? You've either got the acumen to go 1 through 5 and then fire the ball and fire it accurately, or you don't. Sometimes you're just a one-read Jesse and then you're gone.
Well, that's true.
And he was capable of doing that. And that, I didn't expect to see that he was capable. And this is the first half. I didn't expect to see that was within his repertoire. But the reason I like that for Florida State is the time for timid is over. Play downhill. Play fast. If you're going to make mistakes, make them. Because this in-between stuff, like we saw with Georgia Tech, which was keep everything in front of you, it's not going to work. It didn't work against a freshman quarterback who just got killed by UCF. So stop. Play downhill, play fast. And if this guy is able to, and the Louisville film suggests as much, if he's able to sit back there, make decisions, and make good throws, then you might as well force him to make decisions quicker.
Well, Louisville's defense was one of the worst in the country last year, and they don't appear to be any better than they were a year ago. I think they're terrible. I think we're light years better than Louisville on defense. Now they're light years better than we are on offense, but we're light years better than they are on defense.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the wide open coverage breakdowns. I'm talking about when they drop 7 or 8 in coverage and he's able to find the hole, and that's an important skill that I didn't know that he had. I thought he'd be a one-read guy and then break the pocket and go make some scramble plays. Yeah,
he's a nice player. I don't think he's all world. I think he can kill you much more with his legs than he does his arm. His arm is adequate. I'd still rather him throw the football. But that's presuming you get reasonable amount of pressure on the damn guy and that you can cover on the back end, and Louisville couldn't do either. So, this is playing aggressive. I'm with you on this. Adhering to somebody else getting pressure than your Russians because we don't have them. They don't get there. And employing that sort of game plan, which forces him to make quicker decisions, I think will allow for some mistakes potentially to be made or big plays for Florida State's defense. I really did, Florida State making this a more interesting game. I don't know what's going to happen now because this puts everything in tumult. I have no idea. But I envisioned this to be somewhat closer than what a lot of our fan base right now, we're all down in the dumps. I think when you gauge this fan base's response, at least the ones I run into or read or hear from, is that, my God, we're going to lose by 100. Nah. Florida State will show up. They'll play hard. I mean, hell, Willie Taggart's teams fought Miami until last year. Willie Taggart's team that went down to Miami in the game that I was at, we had no evidence that they were going to have a big lead in that game. There was nothing to suggest that they would come out and look even competent, and yet there they were. Rivalries are emotional. These kids, there are enough athletes on this team that if they are locked in and hyper-focused and intense, they'll make a few plays, they'll get some stops, and they'll give themselves a chance. I think offensively is where I'm curious. What does Florida State do? You're going to start James Blackman, I would presume, and in doing so, he's going to have to get helped out in a way that he didn't get helped out in the game against Georgia Tech, and that is to say, catch the freaking ball. I mean, if he does make a play, you gotta obviously help out here. And you think about the 1st and goal Florida State would have had if Warren Thompson doesn't drop the ball early in the game. There's no reason to drop that pass. None. It's not a great, tremendously thrown pass, but it's not woeful. It's in your hands, and he drops it. And then unfortunately, they buzzed down. They caught it before we realized they could have gone. They probably were going to go in and score a touchdown there. Florida State lost by 3 points. Catch the ball. I mean, that kills you. Tamorian Terry, how many times we got to bring it up? That's a walk-in touchdown. Kind of got to catch that. That's 14 points that you're leaving on the field because 2 incredibly gifted receivers can't catch the damn ball when he does it right. There were other drops. I mean, you get the I think that's a smash route over there that he's thrown to the sideline that hits him dead. Oh, no, it's a scramble. Yeah, he bought time. Yeah. And it hits him dead in the hands, and he drops it. I mean, damn it, man. So you can't do that against Miami. You can't really we're not good enough to do that against anybody. So hopefully those guys help out. Maybe James plays adequate. Maybe not, but maybe he does. I don't expect him to get much out of the running game because our running backs look very pedestrian. But, can you throw in the short passing game to keep the pressure off? Maybe.
Well, the good news is that Miami's secondary is vulnerable.
Yeah, they look terrible.
And obviously we pass pro better than we run block if everybody's available. Right tackle is going to be, I think, a question that Mike Norvell, Fields, or Thompson or whoever is going to be available on the Zooms moving forward. That's going to be the question this week. Love Taylor. How's he looking in practice?
How's he looking in practice?
Is he looking in practice?
Well,
is he in practice?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Listen, it's a mountainous climb. I don't expect them to win. I'm trying to point to areas where there's a distinct possibility that they give themselves a chance in the second half. I was saying to Ira, right after Ira spoke with us, that, hey, listen, the bottom line is, can you put game pressure on Miami? Can you get them thinking about how they're supposed to be kicking our ass and have it be tied at 17 in the third quarter? All of a sudden, you're like, well, what do we got here? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's your hope, is that you hang around long enough to have your own players begin to believe, because I don't remember the last time they did.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time our own players believed we were going to win a football game.
Yeah, to me, I think this is a boom or bust game on defense. I keep coming back to that because it looks like King knows what to do with the football for his hot reads. Brevin Jordan, he and Jordan have a really good relationship already.
Yeah.
The passes out to the flats, flare routes by the running backs. Like, we're going to need to take some chances and try and jump some passes here and force some turnovers and generate some short fields. Because if you look in the trenches, obviously, we're not going to generate a pass rush with our front four. So you've got to get creative there. Maybe you change the personnel in the front four. Maybe you go to a 3-down lineman look and you have somebody like an Amari Gaynor who's just affixed at that position of being a rush end. I don't know what the hell you do, but you've got to generate pressure in a different way. And then I would assume that Miami's defensive front is better than Georgia Tech's defensive front.
Yeah, I think it's a safe assumption.
There's going to be more pressure than we saw against Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
It's just you've got to find a way to get extremely aggressive, and it might be to the detriment of having a close game in the second half, but it might put you ahead and be able to put game pressure on Miami at that point. Feast or famine.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. You don't want to pussyfoot, Tom. That's what you're getting at. No pussyfooting. You either lose it or you win it, one way or the other. You're aggressive. You're not neither, right? You're not one. You got to go. Let's go. Give it a run at it. We'll see. There's more to break down as the week goes along. I'm just going into mindset of Florida State, Miami. What a weekend it was. There's so much to try to tackle every week these days. We didn't want on our plate to one of those to be Mike Norvell contracting COVID, but
found a way to lose the bye week.
It is impossible, we thought, but it's not impossible. Yeah, when I began to hear the buzz and the phone started buzzing about news involving Florida State, I went, no. I wasn't supposed to get any news involving Florida State today. I was just going to watch these other teams play football. I don't need to get news today. Why is my phone? That's why. Damn it. I was all in on the NBA and the NHL and baseball and the college football and the NFL. I didn't want to be interrupted with news during a bye week for Florida State of this magnitude, but there we were. Speaking of the U.S. Open, I'll have to touch on it in a moment. DeChambeau gets to get the last laugh, and I'm sure regale all of us with stories of his supreme intellect and how he arrived at this place, because that's going to be nonstop now, buddy. In short, though, as I said in hour one when we were talking, the USGA, they've got decisions to make. There's real talk about what has to happen with the ball. And it's not because Bryson DeChambeau won, although that certainly expedites it in my mind. It might in fans' minds, too, because he's the least likable fellow to ever win a U.S. Open, I would argue. We almost got the double whammy. Can you imagine if this had been DeChambeau and Patrick Reed battling it out down the stretch on a Sunday?
It was for moving day.
I mean, that would have been something we would have been saying. Are you kidding me with this?
So I took great pleasure in Dan Hicks, the play-by-play announcer for NBC and golf. He cannot stand one moment of Patrick Reed coverage. Every time he missed the fairway, he'd say, well, it doesn't matter because he'll just find a way to get up and down.
Yeah.
It's just, and once he finally made bogey, Dan Hicks said, there it is. There it is.
So I want
At some point, it had to catch up with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I see where you're coming from.
Well, nobody's got time for that cheater. I will say this. I thought it was obvious amongst Roger Maltby and others, the hatred for Bryson is a very palpable. I mean, you can feel it. Well, he's got driver out again. Oh, okay. It just doesn't even matter anymore. Same thing. They were, who hits driver here? Well, I guess he does. It was more of them being fed up with the fact that you can get away with that you don't have to play golf. You can win a long drive competition as long as you can putt. That's all that is. Fairways do not matter in the game of golf ever anymore. And there's been growing evidence to that end for some time, and that's what's pissing people off increasingly. And listen, I know you talk about smarmy and sometimes frustrating to listen to, but not dumb. There's no doubt. Chambly's been saying this for how long? Bifurcation and everything. He's been talking about the ball, and guys, at some point.
Yeah, I think a big thing, and this is it reminds me of the Mike Martin commercials. Balls, grips, I don't know anything. I think the grip is something you got to look at too. If you don't want to touch the ball just yet, if you're the USGA, these fat grips. I mean, you don't have to have nearly the precision with your hand movement through the striking area on the putter, or if you see his driver, he's got the fat grips on the driver now too. It makes it so much easier for your hand action to not have to be 100% precise because there's room for error with those suckers. I'd get it down to where it's a little bit closer to the width of the golf shaft.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to mess with that, and I don't care as much about that. I just don't think that you should be able to hit a golf ball 385 yards. We got to stop with that. That's ridiculous. I mean, it does take away shapes, takes away. I mean, listen, we can get into it. There's a lot of interesting points about this. It's not to take anything away from what he did, though, because he's playing within the rules. We'll both concede that, and he did go and do exactly what he wanted to do, which was eliminate certain variables on the course.
It's an ass beating. There's no way around that.
No, it's a dominant
beat
performance.
Everybody's ass.
It's a dominant performance. But it deserves a little bit more attention. I'll get to it in a second. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Now for the smart choice of the weekend, brought to you by University Lending Group. University Lending Group, buying a new home? Make the smart choice and head to ratecheckus.com. In 24 hours or less, you'll have peace of mind knowing that you're getting the lowest rates in Tallahassee. Ratecheckus.com. Well, it's got to be, obviously, Bryson DeChambeau's choice to carve out a different path and to really ignore the criticism along the way, of which there was a bevy of both players currently in the game, his fellow competitors, those champions outside the ropes that commentate on golf and still have a place in the sport. Obviously, announcers from tournament to tournament have pointed out certain things that will or will not work, given his approach being certainly non-traditional. It did work, and it has worked, and he continues now to prove that it works, and this time with the capper of all cappers, winning a U.S. Open, which is generally meant to humble players and test every facet of a golfer's game. It's one of the reasons that those that have won it take great pride in having done so. It's our national championship, but also you can truly say, I was the best golfer. It was revealed I was the best golfer in the field, because the U.S. Open typically really puts an awful lot of weight on accuracy, on your ability to putt, obviously your approach to the green, all of these different areas of the game that have to be pretty complete typically in order for you to win. Now, there are those quietly that have whispered in the last 5-6 years that that's not what a U.S. Open is anymore. And they point to the number of long hitters that have won U.S. Opens and said, no, you don't have to be the most accurate off the tee anymore. These are things that are echoed by people who played the game, loved the game in the 70s and 80s and maybe even early 90s that haven't really kept up with the times and the way the sport's changed because of technology and the ball. A lot of people have pointed out that the bigger hitters are still having a distinct advantage over shot shapers, those that are great on the green, etc. If you can still hit it a mile and you get anywhere of, 6-7 shots gained off the tee over the course of a tournament, you're going to still put yourself in a position, if you can make a few putts, to win it. DeChambeau did that. You and I were talking off the air, most strokes gained total on the field in the final round of a U.S. Open since Johnny Miller's 63 back in 73. Miller's was 10.7, DeChambeau 7.9. Very quietly, by the way, it should be also pointed out that DeChambeau tied for fourth at the PGA Championship. He was not out of it there either. He played really well on a course that also suggested you shouldn't be able to do that, and he did. He was the only player under par. He wins resoundingly, 70 or better for all 4 days, and that included the Saturday when he didn't play all that well, so much so that he went afterwards and spent hours on end trying to find the feel again for his driver, which did work. But for DeChambeau, I think it's too simple for us to say that it's just the driver, although that is the largest component of his success. Distance control, he was really good with that. You look at all of these numbers. We love the advanced metrics in golf now because it does paint a clearer picture and give you the information you need to figure out why somebody won. Shots gained off the tee, 5.38. By the way, you know who led the field in that this week? Wasn't Bryson. Do you know who led the field?
Tony Finau.
No, that would be Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy. Approach to the green, 6.98. That's Bryson. That's a lot of strokes to win on approach. I mean, that's insane. Around the green, 5.42. Putting, 4.59.
Yeah.
So he really can putt it. He can really putt it.
He had a ton of low blood pressure putts on Sunday. The lags from 30 or 40 feet or the chips. I mean, he put himself outside of that U.S. Open range, which typically lives where? Between 5 and 8 feet?
Yeah.
And that's where you got to make your bread and butter. How many times did he have long putts over the undulation of the green, and he left himself inside of 3 feet?
Yeah, his lag putts are spectacular.
They were.
He can really putt. He really can. And we gave him that credit before. He's gotten a lot better there. His overriding philosophy since he made this transformation, since he went from being, when he was an All-American golfer in college, so it wasn't like he lacked skill. He had all kinds of skill. But ever since he decided, I'm going to put on 40 pounds and hit it further than anybody else because I'm tired of people beating me off the tee, his whole strategy was you got to be good at really two things. You got to be really, really, really good off the tee, hit it a mile. You got to be able to putt it. And he's a really good putter. Statistically speaking, you look on the tour where he ranks, he's really, really good.
Yeah, it makes a must-see TV for the Masters, and we'll see what the course plays like, the speed of the course in November versus what it looks like in April. I'm not sure how much rain they get in comparison to April. My guess would be less, so I don't know if the course would play faster at Augusta. But again, he's doing some things, and the trending arrows are going up, up, and away. I get that. But remember, just last year, Gary Woodland ran away with the U.S. Open playing a little bit of a different style. It was Gary in the A flight, Brooks in the B flight, and then the rest of the world in the C flight.
But Brooks hits it a mile, and Gary isn't short. So, I think, again, he's on the upper end of long. So you still got to hit it a long way. The only way you don't is if you're Zach Johnson and you smoke the field in strokes gained on the green, which he did. He led the entire field by a mile. It wasn't even close. He makes everything. He's always been able to putt. But I think the lesson here is, unless you're the best putter in the world, you better hit it a mile. Because Matthew Wolff hits it a mile. And, a mile. He's right there with Bryson on a lot of those holes in terms of distance.
He had a rough day. Now, I understand that he's got to hit the gas at all times because he's trying to run down Bryson, especially on that back nine.
Yeah.
Composure.
Think about him, though. He's supposed to be in college, and he now has a tied for fourth at the PGA and a second in his U.S. Open. These are his first two majors. That kid's trending in all the right directions.
Well, and he had the battle with Bryson earlier this season.
And he beat him.
First events in COVID. He lost to him. No, that was a year ago.
He beat him.
He made the eagle on the 18th hole.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then this year, Bryson stuck it to 3 feet to walk it off. But those two were in consecutive groups.
Yeah.
And they were going back and forth. This might be a rivalry. We always wanted Tiger Phil. We always wanted X and Y, right? But maybe this is a rivalry that we get between these two.
It can be, I think. I think really the only people that are going to compete with these guys that, like you're talking about here with Wolff and DeChambeau, are those that can hit it a lot further than everybody else. If you can putt, distance control, again, the people have been yelling at the USGA, all governing bodies for some time, you've got to do something that makes people play the game again, play the game of golf. And I don't mean fans, meaning the people who are between the ropes on the tour. You want to reveal different kinds of winners for different courses. You want shot makers to have a chance. Corey Pavin couldn't win a major now. He did back then, and he was one of the shortest hitters in the field that year. You can't win that way anymore unless you're on one of these old school golf courses. And even then, they try to look how far they grew out the rough. It didn't make any difference. His thought was, and this is where I give him a ton of credit, was, okay, conventional wisdom is that I have to do this, this, and this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hit it over all of that. I'm going to go find it in this rough that you've grown to no end, but I have a 60-degree wedge that I hit really, really well, and I can get it out of here, and I'll land it on the green. And if I land it on the green, and greens being the all-important thing here in regulation, if I get it on the green, I'm a better putter than most of these guys. I'll give myself a chance to make putts. You don't want golf to become that. At that point, you just take long drivers in these contests and let them come out and hit it as far as they can, and then say, learn how to putt, dude. Learn how to putt.
Yeah, it would trend that way.
Yeah.
But Bryson was a U.S. Am champion as a thinner man, so he's had some game before
Immense
this
game.
change.
He's a skilled guy, and it shouldn't get lost in all of that. That he can't. He's probably one of the few athletes in the world that can do what he did.
But you're right. I think the two ways you could go here, because tiger proofing has already happened, so there's precedent for this. But that was just simply lengthening the course and moving the bunkers around to landing areas. And you can't really lengthen them anymore. The properties are exhausted.
Yeah,
a lot of these courses have bought up adjacent properties just to make it as much as they can right now. You either add hazards, as in water or out of bounds, or you grow the rough to the point that it's fescue like it's overseas. If you're not going to fix the ball.
You could
just fix the ball and leave a lot of these courses the way they are.
Yeah, I think that's where we're headed. Is you're going to have to fix the ball. Couple of side notes here. We always like to look at the field and talk about who's a real player on a Sunday and who isn't. And Bryson, now we know, is without question. He's got the intestinal fortitude. Azinger couldn't stop talking about it, but he's right. You know who doesn't? And I feel for him because he's got the weight of a country on his shoulders, but we need to stop showing Hideki Matsuyama on Sundays. It's just not fun. I feel awful for him. He lost 3.5 shots on the field on the greens on Sunday alone. He can't, and this is like on average what he always does. He can't make putts when he knows he has to make putts. I thought it was fascinating to see Ricky, of all the players that made the cut, finish dead last in putting. There it is. I sent you the softball. You're supposed to tell everybody what a great putter he is, because that's what the announcers do.
Oh, well, I mean.
He finished dead last of those that made the cut in putting.
It's him and Day are the two that everybody raves about.
Day's had a better year.
Day's had a better year. Many people have. I think John Pack had a better weekend than Ricky Fowler.
And we need to get to John Pack, and I will in a moment. JT, the driver, was awful. Was happy that Patrick Reed, who's equally as unlikable as DeChambeau, went 77-74. So that's how you close that out. Get the hell up out of here, thankfully. What do we make of Xander Schauffele at this point? I figure you might have an opinion on him, because I can't – he's still young. He's still very young. But I went and looked it up because I was kind of curious, because –
You knew the answer.
No, I'm starting to roll my eyes with him too.
You knew the answer before you looked it up. You're looking at weekend performance?
No. I wanted to look at his performances in the majors, because he's always there, which he gets credit for.
It's 4 consecutive top 4s or 6s or something like that for him in the U.S. Open.
Well, here's what he is. He's participated in 13 majors. Okay, sorry, I put my note here. He's been in 13 majors in his young career, all right? He has 2 runners-up, very impressive, all right, in 13 majors. He's got 9 top 25s. So if you're one of these guys that play the weekend where you perhaps you're a sporting guy or gal and you need to take somebody in those kinds of pools, always have him, because he's going to make the cut, and he's going to, at one point, maybe even be in the lead. He's going to be there on a weekend, and he's going to conclude in the top 25. He just ain't going to win it. Now, he's got 4 wins, unlike Tony Finau. So I put Finau higher on this "you're under the tent of suspicion" list than I do Xander, by far. And I think Xander has more game than Tony. But I'm starting to pencil him in as you're a very good player. We'll see.
Yes, if you're just trying to project out and you're a scout. Let's just say that you were going to draft him to the next level. You'd say, could be Lee Westwood. Might be. Could be the weekday warrior and the weekend hoverer, but never the weekend winner.
Well, his driver went south on him. I mean, he just couldn't hit it. I mean, here's the thing. We talk about not needing to hit fairways. Well, you don't. You don't need to hit fairways, apparently. In fact, what's the number? Bryson hit 23 of 56 fairways. Fewest of all time.
Like, I know that Schauffele, if you're talking about age, is in this class of this younger group of guys.
Yeah,
but if you're
really
somebody
young,
like a Schauffele, or certainly a Rory, or a lot of these guys, Ricky Fowler most certainly, Jordan Spieth, and you're looking at Bryson and Morikawa and Wolf and some of the guys that might be coming up next if Hovland ever figures out how to putt the ball just a little bit.
Yeah.
The chances you're going to have at a walkaway win when you, quote-unquote, have it are diminished, because now there's another handful of dudes, because I'm sure I'm forgetting 2 or 3, that if they have it, it's better than what you have. Or it's right there, shot for shot.
Yeah.
For those guys, Spieth and Rory.
Well, Spieth, I don't think we can include.
But at his best,
yeah.
If he was on, he was going to win.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore,
but
man.
But it's been 5 years since he's been anywhere. That's like 3 full years since he's been mattered in any way. Meaning Jordan, he doesn't. He's not in positions like we see Xander Schauffele.
Right, but okay, Ricky had the year where he's a runner-up, and it's just he's always going to be there. If he's on, he's right there, and if he actually can, put it together a little bit for a weekend beyond his baseline, then he's going to win a major. I'm just saying that now you got to bring more than what you had to 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. By the way, the most curious result of the whole thing is and we'll move from this. Rory led the field in strokes gained off the tee and gained 3.5 shots on the green. He made putts. If I told you going in, he's going to lead the field in shots gained off the tee, and he's going to gain 3.5 strokes to the field on the green, you'd be like, well, he's going to win again.
Yeah, except it's a major, so I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, he's shown up more than a lot of these guys we're talking about in majors lately. That's still a top 10. It's in
his head. 6 years now.
Well, I think there's some things in his head because obviously he's talented, but I don't think this result is him in his head, because those are good numbers. We were ripping him on the greens lately, not being able to make putts. He made putts. Now, I do think he's got to get proximity to the hole from 100 in. He's doing that thing.
His wedges are awful.
That's really killing him.
Yeah, they have been for a while. Yeah,
that is killing him, which is strange. I'd rather have his problem than anybody else's. If you're telling me I got to just fix my wedges, okay, that's a good problem to work on.
Go talk to Phil. He's willing to do these things for Amstel Light. Maybe you could pay him a couple of bucks and he'd tell you, all right, let's go with the half wedge, keep it low, because that is the thing that boosted the second half of my major career. Yeah. Remember when he rolled that out? The 2-hop and stop?
Oh, yeah, the 2-hop and stop is incredible.
Oh, my, this little, I mean, what does it get, 15 feet off the ground at most?
Maybe he should. I don't know. I mean,
whatever these full swings are with the wedges, they suck. I mean, for that standard of player.
Sure. Yeah,
30 feet long consistently. Like, what the hell is this?
You shouldn't be missing there. Bottom line is, Johnny Pack, we salute you, baby. Made the cut, our guy, and you know what? Outshined a lot of world-class players to do it in your first ever U.S. Open. As an amateur, you end up being low amateur, saluted as such. We got to see him on the TV. That's fantastic.
I know he said on the dais that the weather got tougher as he was wrapping up his final round yesterday. I'd never say that again. I'd say, hey, look at the course average. I shot 74 on Sunday at Wingfoot.
Yeah.
What do you want out of me?
No, he's got nothing but pride that he should feel in his performance. We're all proud of him. He's a great kid, too. I mean, he's a great kid. I'll just say that. I can vouch for that. If you're a Knoll and you saw him play and you watched that performance, you got to be very, very proud. You should be anyhow, and we'll have to watch him. It will be curious. I'm curious about his pro career, but he's a tough guy. He's a tough guy. So he'll be around. You know, he's not going to concede anything, but he's going to have to get longer like everybody else unless they do something with the ball.
I was impressed. I didn't follow the weekend stuff as much when it comes to the metrics, but Thursday and Friday as we were here on the air, his average drives were over 300. That'll be plenty, especially if he can be the putter, the grinding putter that he looks like he might be on the tour.
There will be no problems when it comes to toughness. He's not going to shrink, so I don't worry about that. Like Sundays aren't going to scare him. Tournaments, fields, and things like that aren't going to scare him. It'll be something with the game that he'll have to work on. Chef Cameron Show 97.9 ESPN Radio. Hard to get my head around this being the end for baseball and the playoffs getting geared up. Yeah, I think you said it last week. Baseball went to the back burner for you as the Lightning continued to surge and make their way through the playoffs. And then, of course, the NBA playoffs have been pretty spectacular. And then the return of college football and the NFL. Eventually, baseball fell behind. It's pretty telling. I think that's true. And I am a really avid baseball fan, but even for me, it kind of got pushed back. Now, the Pirates being the worst team in baseball probably aided that. Tim Linnefeld sent me a text. He's a fellow Pirate fan over the weekend. This was before the games yesterday, which I didn't check on the Pirates, but the Pirates were minus 90 in run differential. It's a shortened season. You don't see too many minus 90s through 50-something games. That's like hard to do. I didn't know that was possible.
Now you do.
Now the little minus 90. I think it's worse than that now.
The good news is we have Super Regional MLB baseball next week. 16 teams are going to all be playing consecutive days. That is chaos.
Yeah, that'll be fun. It will be fun. I got to find a way to kind of, I guess, pencil in on a schedule everything I want to watch when I want to watch it.
Well, yeah, it'll be like that thing with Charlie from It's Always Sunny. It's like the board of the investigations. But hang with us for that, too, because we need to bring you Braves baseball for the postseason. So we'll be up for grabs like a lot of people will next week.
I'm excited, though. But, playoff baseball is different. It does feel more fitting this year just to do it the way they're doing it, that the regular season felt like an imposter anyhow. I knew they were angling just to figure out a way to get their playoff money, and they have. And so here we go. And you're going to get probably get a weird champion. Somebody's going to get screwed.
Oh, definitely.
Without question. Somebody's going to get absolutely.
The odds demand at least one team, like the Dodgers or the Rays or the Yankees.
Let's hope it's the Yankees and the Dodgers both getting screwed simultaneously.
But, yeah, I mean, next week is going to be crazy because you got the NBA Finals potentially if this round, wraps up. And then you've got that plus NFL on Monday and Thursday. I mean, they're going to have to find time. Yeah. SEC is rolling back out.
It's God. We're getting geared back up now, man. Yeah, it's exciting. I love it. I mean, more sports, not less sports, although I like the return to our seasons. I want to get back to that. I like being able to plan for these things and to know I didn't miss. Oh, I missed that. That was at 2 o'clock today? Really? I had no idea. That's how I feel sometimes with this stuff, so it's a little frustrating. By the way, we'll do probables for you right now, brought to you by Whidden Glass. Whidden Glass, a family-owned and operated business serving Tallahassee and the Big Bend area since 1945. They're Tallahassee's first family and glass replacement, highly respected for their quality of installation, both residential and commercial. Whidden Glass, 222-5781. That's 222-5781.
It's time for, how you say, with the pitching, probables?
Actually, today, yeah. So, yesterday was the last day of summer, correct?
I guess that's
today,
right. Yeah.
Today is the last day.
21st is the line of delineation.
Today is the last day of summer. Sorry. But boy, did we get lucky over the weekend. My God. I hope you guys did what we did. Spend as much time outside as possible. Whatever viewing you needed to do it outside. There were times I just stood in my driveway. Look at this. What's going on here? Glorious. Got to eat it up because it's going to come in waves. And
yesterday, the cross breeze was perfect. Through the 1 o'clock games for the NFL, every once in a while, it just smacked me across the cheek, and I love the way it smacked me.
Phillies national Zach Wheeler will throw for the Phillies. Anibal Sanchez, still in the league. 2-5 with a 7.38. Goes for the Nats. White Sox, Indians. Dane Dunning going for the White Sox. Aaron Cavalli going for the Indians. We got the Yankees and the Blue Jays. TBD for the Yankees. Matt Shoemaker going for the Blue Jays. Brewers, Reds. Brandon Woodruff, Luis Castillo. Cubs, Pirates. Mercifully, this is almost over. The Buccos a cool 15-38. John Lester will shove tonight against the Pirates. JT Brubaker will be his adversary. Tampa Bay and the Mets. Oh, there we go.
Woohoo.
Pete Fairbanks, who's been good. The Rays always have guys that they roll out that you go, what? Who's that? Oh, 5-3 with a 2.74.
That guy sounds like the dude who signed a 10-movie deal with Lifetime for their holiday stuff.
Yeah. Jacob deGrom will be pitching for you, so he's obviously healthy.
One last time, Jakey.
Marlins, Braves, Trevor Rogers, Huascar Noah going for the Braves. Cardinals and Royals, Adam Wainwright, Carlos Hernandez. We got the Astros and the Mariners, Lance McCullers Jr., Marco Gonzalez. Rockies, Giants, Herman Marquez goes for the Rockies, and Johnny Cueto going for the Giants. And that's a look at those that shall reside on the bump. I don't know, guys. I just didn't have the heart to go 5 o'clock hour all in on the Knowles. We'll do more Knowles probably Wednesday. Listen, you can beat this to death. I don't want to beat it to death on a Monday. I can't do it. I can't do it right now. It pisses me off to no end. This is the position we're in. I concede that I didn't do a lot of focusing on Florida State this hour. Because we did in the 4 and the 3, and I know I let some of you guys drive it on your way home down, but it beats me up to watch us be this bad and to have such a little chance at something nice in our life as it pertains to Florida State football. Why wallow in that? Why continue to wade into those waters? Let's divert the attention elsewhere every now and again, right?
Well, that's why I'm saying play aggressively. At least, you give yourself a fighting chance if turnover luck goes your way. Maybe a sack fumble because you bring the sixth man, which you need.
Scoop and score.
Because 5 won't be enough.
No. I'm kind of like, well.
Maybe there's something, too, that you're right. The Louisville's slow in the secondary. They're terrible at that. All that
terrible.
Stuff. So maybe he's got to tell. Maybe you can jump a route. Because the ball just doesn't get there as quickly as Louisville made it look like it got there.
Well, when you don't cover somebody, it doesn't matter if it takes a long time to get there. I mean, how many wide open receivers is he throwing to, or tight ends for that matter? Sweet Jesus. You're allowed to play defense, guys.
Got to come up and hit Cameron Harris, though.
Yeah.
Because they'll feature that if that's what it takes.
Listen, Lashley's got an offense in place that has an identity. They know what they are. They're going to run it. They're going to do the things that, they now equate to winning, and they've only been buoyed by their success in the first 2 games. You got to do something to make them question it. And maybe we have the personnel to do that if they play aggressive. And that's where your hope lies, is that you get them thinking a little bit. They haven't had to. They haven't had to in 2 games. If you're quicker, stronger, faster than anything they've seen, all of a sudden the game takes on a different complexion.
But if you do that, you are 100% going to concede some plays from King with his legs.
Oh, without question.
You have to be ready to handle it.
I'd be willing to do that. And then just make him pay. At the end of a 27-yard run, right to the sternum. Try to crack ribs. Let's go. Good work out of you. Good work, Matthew. What do we got next? Baseball, do we?
We got Monday Night Football.
Oh, what the hell am I talking about? See, that all blends together. Monday Night Football. Hang in.